The Dershow.
There's an argument for term limits. After all, when the framers of the Constitution wrote Article 3, the average lifespan of a justice was 50 something. So if they were appointed at 40, they had term limits, God imposed term limits, or medically imposed term limits, not judicially or legislatively imposed term limits. But very few justices back in the day served 20 or 30 years. But in the 20th century and 21st century, that happened. Oliver Wendell Holmes served many, many years. Brandeis served many, many years. Douglas, Frankfurter, Black, the justice I clerked for, served 3 years, I think. And then he resigned to become ambassador to the United Nations. A foolish mistake I think he made, something I urged him not to do, but he followed his own decisions and decided to leave the Supreme Court. But now we have justices who are serving many years. My friend and former colleague Steve Breyer served, I think, 25 years or something like that, maybe even longer. And other justices have also served long terms. There is an argument for term limitations. There is no argument, however, for adding justices to the Supreme Court, because if the Democrats can make it, 11, the Republicans can make it 13, and we're going to get a Supreme Court that's the size of the Senate before long, packed with people and justices who will serve the interests of the president who appoints them. We don't want that. Look, the Supreme Court has turned right, it's turned left, it's turned centrist. When I was a law clerk on the Supreme Court, it was turning left. Chief Justice Earl Warren on the left, Brennan on the left, Goldberg on the left, Black on the left. It was a split court and a lot of 5-4 decisions, but there were a couple of real conservatives, but the court consisted mostly of people on the left and people in the center. And then it became even more left during a period of time. Now it's moved right. That's the nature of the Supreme Court. And it will change over time naturally. And the people who are on the opposite side of the political spectrum don't like it when it turns against them. The same thing happened in Israel. The mirror image, the exact opposite. In Israel, the right was concerned that the Israeli Supreme Court had turned too far left, so they introduced structural reforms. Nothing to do with the politics or ideology. It has to do with making the Supreme Court a better institution. Nonsense. It was all designed to turn the Supreme Court in Israel from left to right. And in the United States, it's designed to turn the Supreme Court from right to left. And both are wrong. The Supreme Court should operate with 9 justices, either with lifetime tenure or with neutrally applied term limits. I don't support age limits. I do perhaps for the presidency, but I don't for justices, because if you had age limits, then presidents would start appointing fetuses to the Supreme Court. Obviously, I don't mean that literally, but they would start appointing 30-year-olds to the Supreme Court in the hope that if there are age limits, say 75, a person appointed at 35 could serve 40 years. So you don't want age limits. What you want is term limits, so that way the justices are appointed without regard to age. And I think justices should be mature. Look, Oliver Wendell Holmes was 60 when he was appointed to the Supreme Court. Ruth Bader Ginsburg was 60. I think Justice Brandeis was 60. And they all served 20-something years because they lived long. And we have to anticipate that our justices today will live much longer lives than the justices of the past have lived.